My sister slapped me in front of 200 people at her wedding because I wouldn't give her my penthouse. A judge was watching, and it turned out to be the perfect revenge. The champagne flute trembled in my hand. I watched my sister, Sabrina, glide across the marble floor of the Ritz-Carlton ballroom. Her custom Vera Wang gown trailed behind her like liquid silk. 200 guests had gathered to witness her fairy tale wedding to Derek, a brilliant investment banker she'd met just 8 months ago. I couldn't help but notice the irony. She was marrying for money while demanding mine. My name is Vivian, and at 32, I've worked relentlessly to get where I am. While Sabrina spent her 20s chasing lovers, I was pulling all-nighters in the mall, school, and working 70-hour weeks at a top Manhattan firm. 5 years ago, I took a massive risk by starting my own business litigation practice. It paid off spectacularly. Last year, I settled a case that allowed me to buy a stunning penthouse overlooking Central Park, the same one everyone in my family now believe belonged to them. Vivian, darling, you look absolutely radiant. My mother, Diane, approached with a saccharine smile she reserved for when she wanted something. Her silver hair was perfectly coiffed, and she wore a navy dress that likely cost more than most people's rent. We need to have a little family chat. My stomach sank. Family. Chats in the Morrison household were never good news. Mom, it's Sabrina's wedding day. Can't this wait? Actually, no, my father, Robert, said, appearing beside her. His expression was stern. At 58, Dad still commanded attention in his fitted tuxedo, but his eyes held the familiar disappointment. That had haunted me since childhood. We've been discussing your living situation. I took a large sip of my champagne. My living situation? What about it? Well, honey, my mom's voice turned sickly sweet. You know how Sabrina and Derek are. Starting a family. They'll need more space than that tiny apartment Derek's been renting. I blinked. They're not even pregnant yet, Mom. But they will be soon, Sabrina chirped, joining our circle with her husband's arm around her waist. At 28, she was undeniably attractive with auburn hair and green eyes, but her calculated expression made my skin crawl. We're planning to start trying right away. Congratulations, I murmured cautiously. I'm sure you'll find a lovely place to raise your family. We already have, Sabrina replied, her smile radiant. We want your penthouse. The words hit me like a physical blow. Excuse me? Now, Vivian, before you get all defensive, Dad interjected, using the patronizing tone he thought was reasonable. Think about this logically. You're a single woman. You don't need all that space. Sabrina and Derek, on the other hand, are starting a family. They need room for children, for their future. You want me to give up my home? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The home I had worked for years to afford. Not give up, Mom hastily corrected. Trade. You can take Derek's apartment. It's perfectly adequate for one person. A 600-square-foot studio in Queens. I said, incredulous. You want me to trade my 3-bedroom penthouse on the Upper West Side for a studio apartment in Queens? Vivian, don't be so dramatic, Sabrina urged. It's not like you even use all that space. What do you need 3 bedrooms for? You don't even have a boyfriend. The jab was aimed to sting, and it did. Sabrina had always been the golden child. My parents praised her boldness for dropping out of college to find herself and called her career and relationship hopping, exploring her options. When I graduated law school summa cum laude, they worried that I'd worked too hard. I need those bedrooms because it's my home. I shot back, my voice rising. I earned it, I paid for it, and I'm not giving it up. Vivian Elizabeth Morrison? Mom's voice turned sharp. It is incredibly selfish. Family comes first, always. Family? I laughed bitterly. Have any of you ever treated me like family? When I needed help studying for the bar, you said I was being antisocial. When I started my own firm and struggled, you accused me of being careless. And now that I've succeeded, you act like it was an accident. That's not true, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction, isn't it? When was the last time any of you asked about my life, my career, my happiness? But the moment I have something you desire, I'm family again. Sabrina stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. You know what your problem is, Vivian? You've always been jealous of me. You can't stand that I'm getting married, that I'm going to have the family you'll never have. I'm not jealous of you, Sabrina. I'm disappointed in you. Disappointed? She let out a harsh laugh. I'm the one getting married, and I'll be the one to give Mom and Dad grandkids. What have you done besides make money? I've built a life, I said softly. I've worked for everything I have, and I've never asked any of you for anything. Well, now we're asking something of you, Dad stated firmly. Your sister needs that penthouse more than you do. It's time you did something for your family instead of just yourself. Robert's right, Mom said, her voice rising. Selfish children don't deserve success. You've had everything handed to you, and now you won't even help your own sister. The accusation was so ludicrous, I nearly laughed. Handed. To me, I worked 3 jobs to pay for law school. I lived on ramen noodles for 2 years while building my practice. I never asked them for a dime. Your sister's kids need real homes, Dad bellowed, causing several nearby guests to turn and stare. Not some cramped apartment. They deserve better. They're not even conceived yet. I protested, but I knew I was losing this fight. My family was an expert at making me feel guilty about my accomplishments. Sabrina moved closer, her voice low and venomous. You know what, Vivian? I'm done pretending to care about your feelings. I've always known I was the better daughter. I'm prettier and more likable. I'm the one who makes Mom and Dad proud. And now I'm finally getting what I've always deserved. The words hung in the air, a final challenge. Around us, wedding guests began to gather, sensing the drama. Their conversations died as they focused on our family feud. What is it you think you've always deserved, Sabrina? I asked softly. Everything, she replied simply. The penthouse. The respect, the life you've been hoarding for yourself. I deserve it all, and I'm finally going to get it. Over my dead body, the slap came so fast I didn't see it. Sabrina's fingers struck my cheek with a sharp snap that echoed across the ballroom. For a fleeting moment, a hush fell over the 200 guests. Their chatter died in mid-sentence as they turned to watch. Then the laughter began. It started with a few scattered giggles from Sabrina's friends, who had always looked down on me for being too serious and focused on work, but it spread like wildfire. Guests who didn't know me were pointing, laughing, and muttering behind their hands. Did you see that? About time someone put Vivian in her place. I always knew she was stuck up. My cheek burned, but I did not cry. I would not give them the satisfaction. Instead, I stood there, feeling the weight of 200 pairs of eyes on me, listening to their cruel whispers and judgment. Sabrina smiled triumphantly. Maybe now you'll start acting like a real sister. Mom and Dad stood behind her. They didn't apologize. They didn't defend me. They just watched, waiting to see if I would finally concede to their demands. That's when I realized something crucial. This wasn't just about the penthouse. This was about them keeping me in my place, reminding me that no matter how successful I became, I would always be the disappointment, the one who didn't matter. But they had made one fatal mistake. They had humiliated me in front of 200 witnesses, including prominent figures from New York's legal and business circles, people who knew me, respected me, and understood what I was capable of. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. My hands were remarkably steady, despite the fury coursing through my veins. I began typing without a word. Vivian, what are you doing? Mom asked, a flicker of unease in her voice. I ignored her and kept typing. The laughter around us died down as people realized I wasn't reacting as they expected. I wasn't running away in tears. I was doing something else entirely. Vivian, put that away. You're embarrassing yourself, Dad said. No, I replied quietly. Still typing. I'm not the one who should be embarrassed. Sabrina tried to grab my phone, but I moved away and clicked send just as her fingertips brushed the screen. What did you do? She hissed. I looked up at her, at my parents, and at a multitude of guests still watching us with avid interest. I've chosen the revenge that will silence you forever. Their confused expressions were almost comical. They expected me to either cave or break down crying. They did not expect me to fight back. My phone buzzed with a response, then another, and then several more in rapid succession. Vivian, what did you send? Mom's voice was shrill now, laced with panic. I gave the first genuine smile I'd felt all evening. I sent a message to my group chat. You know, the one with all my lawyer friends, the journalists I've worked with, the business contacts I've made over the years, the people who actually matter. In the city. Sabrina's face turned ashen. What kind of message? Just a little update about tonight's events? How my family demanded I give up my penthouse to my sister and her new husband? How my mother screamed that selfish children don't deserve success? How my father said my sister's hypothetical children needed a real home more than I did? How my sister slapped me in front of 200 people because I wouldn't hand over my life's work? The ballroom was utterly silent. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. I also mentioned, I said, my voice cutting through the hush, how everyone laughed when I was assaulted. How amusing they found it that a successful woman was being put in her place by her family. Vivian, you need to delete that right now. Dad warned, his voice dangerously low. Delete what? The truth? I shrugged. Too late anyway. It's already been shared. You know how social media works, Dad? Once something's out there, it's out there forever. My phone was now vibrating continuously with messages of sympathy, outrage, and requests for more information. The story was spreading even faster than I'd expected. You're a vindictive witch. Sabrina shrieked, her voice wavering. No, Sabrina. I'm just done being your doormat. Derek, who had been silent through the argument, finally spoke. Vivian, maybe we can work something out. We didn't mean for things to go this far. I looked at him with a hint of pity. You married into the wrong family, Derek. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. What do you mean? He asked, his tone betraying genuine confusion. I mean, your new wife and in-laws just made some very powerful enemies. Do you know who Judge Margaret John is? She was here tonight. She saw everything. She's already texted me, expressing her disgust at your wife's behavior. Sabrina's face went from white to green. Judge Chun was one of New York's most respected judges, known for having zero tolerance for entitled behavior. And David Rodriguez from the Times. He's been following me all evening, trying to get an interview about my latest case. He saw the whole thing. He's asking if I want to comment on how successful women are treated by their families. Vivian, stop. Mom urged, you're going to ruin Sabrina's wedding. Sabrina ruined her own wedding when she decided to assault me in front of 200 people. It was just a slap. Sabrina insisted, you're being dramatic. It was an assault, Sabrina, and it was witnessed by 200 people, including several lawyers, a judge, and apparently a reporter. You want to know what I deserve? I deserve not to be physically attacked by my own family. My phone rang. I looked at the screen and smiled. Oh, this is interesting. It's Amanda Walsh from Walsh and Associates. You know, the law firm that handles high-profile reputation management cases. She's offering her services pro bono. Sabrina's face was utterly drained of blood. In New York's elite circles, reputation management was a euphemism for scandal control. If Amanda Walsh was calling, it meant the story had already gone viral. "Vivian, please," Sabrina said, her voice a barely audible whisper. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. I was just emotional. You're sorry?" I chuckled, though it wasn't funny. "You're sorry that there are consequences to your actions. You're sorry that you can't just take whatever you want from me without a fight, but you're not sorry for what you did." "I am sorry," she insisted. "I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone it was a mistake. Too late for that. The damage is done." And it was. I could see it on the faces of the people around us. The laughter had vanished, replaced by uneasy whispers and pointed stares. People who had found my humiliation amusing now looked at Sabrina with disgust. "What do you want?" Dad said quietly, defeat evident in his voice. "I want you to leave me alone," I stated plainly. "All of you. I want you to stop treating me like an ATM. Stop expecting me to sacrifice my happiness for Sabrina's convenience, and stop pretending that family means anything to you beyond what you can get from me." "Vivian, we're still family," Mom murmured softly. "No, we're not. Family doesn't demand you give up your home. Family doesn't scream at you in public. Family doesn't assault you at a wedding. Family supports each other, celebrates each other's successes, and treats each other with respect. You've never done any of those things for me." My phone vibrated again. It was a text from my assistant. "Vivian TMZ is calling. They want to know if you're the lawyer who was assaulted at the Ritz-Carlton wedding. What do I tell them?" I held the phone up so everyone could see the message. "TMZ is calling. This is about to become a very public story." Sabrina started to sob, her flawless makeup now streaked down her cheeks. "Vivian, please, this is my wedding day. Don't ruin it." "I'm not ruining anything, Sabrina. I'm just refusing to be your victim anymore. What can we do?" Derek asked, desperate. "How do we fix this?" I looked at him, then at my parents, and finally at my sister, who was now weeping uncontrollably. In her wedding dress. "You can't fix this, Derek. This is who they are. This is what they do. They take and take and take until there's nothing left. And when you finally say no, they attack you for it." The ballroom was beginning to empty. Guests were making excuses and slipping away from what was clearly a family catastrophe. Sabrina's beautiful wedding was unraveling, and everyone wanted to distance themselves from the chaos. "The penthouse is mine," I said gently. "I earned it, I paid for it, and I'm keeping it. If you want to live somewhere nice, Sabrina, get a job, work for it, like I did." "I can't believe you're doing this," she choked out. "I can't believe it. Took me this long." When I turned to leave, Dad grabbed my arm. "Vivian, wait. We can work this out. Family counseling, mediation, whatever you want." I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up to his face. "Let go of me, Dad." He released me instantly, a new awareness in his eyes of the consequences of physically restraining me. "There's nothing to work out," I told them. "You made your choice tonight. You chose Sabrina over me, just like you always have. You chose her demands over my boundaries. And when I said no, you chose to watch her assault me rather than defend me. We didn't know she was going to hit you," Mom insisted. "But you didn't stop her. You didn't apologize. You didn't even check if I was okay. You just stood there and let it happen." I began walking toward the exit, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Behind me, I could hear Sabrina's sobs, Mom's frantic murmurs, and Dad's angry muttering, but I didn't look back. At the door, I turned one last time. The once grand ballroom now looked like a disaster zone. Wedding guests were separated into small groups, whispering and pointing. The bride was crying, her makeup ruined. The groom looked stunned, and my parents were frantically trying to contain the damage that had already spiraled out of control. You know what the funny thing is? I said, my voice echoing in the nearly empty room. I would have helped you if you'd asked nicely. If you'd come to me with respect, if you'd treated me like family instead of a bank account, I would have helped you find a nice place to live. I might have even helped with the down payment. The ensuing silence was deafening, but you didn't ask for help. You demanded my home. You screamed at me, insulted me, and then physically attacked me when I said no. So now you get nothing. I walked out of the Ritz-Carlton with my head held high, leaving behind the wreckage of my sister's wedding and my family's reputation. The elevator ride down felt endless. As the doors closed, I could still hear the muffled turmoil from the ballroom sobs, angry voices, and the scrape of chairs as the remaining guests fled the scene. My phone hadn't stopped vibrating since I sent that message, and with each notification, I felt a mix of relief and dread. The lobby was thankfully quiet. The night manager, a distinguished gentleman in his 50s, approached me with concern. "Miss Morrison, is everything all right?" We heard there was some commotion upstairs. I paused, realizing that even the hotel staff knew. "I'm fine, thank you. Just some family drama." He nodded politely, but I could see the curiosity in his eyes. By morning, this story would have traveled through the hotel's entire staff network and beyond. In New York's elite circles, scandals spread like wildfire. Outside, the crisp October air hit my face like a slap, an odd sensation, given I'd already been slapped once tonight. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, watching the traffic on Central Park South, trying to process what had just happened. A part of me couldn't believe I'd done it. Another part wondered why it had taken me so long. My phone rang. It was Riley, my best friend from my first year at the firm. "Vivian, what the hell is going on? I just saw your group message, and now there are pictures all over Instagram. Did Sabrina really hit you?" "She did." I started walking toward the subway. I needed to move, to do something with the adrenaline still surging through me. "Holy cow, are you okay? Do you want me to come over?" "I'm fine, Riley. Actually, I'm better than fine." I think I'm finally free. There was a pause on the other end. Free? Free from what? Free from pretending they're my family. Free from feeling guilty about my success. Free from walking on eggshells every time I'm around them. "Vivian, you know, this is going to get messy, right? Like, really messy." "I know, but I'm tired of being the one who always has to clean up their messes. Let them figure it out for once. What about your parents?" "They're going to be devastated." I stopped walking. Riley, they stood there and watched their daughter assault me in public. They demanded I give up my home for their golden child. They called me selfish for wanting to keep what I'd worked for. When exactly am I supposed to start caring about their feelings? "You're right," she replied softly. "I'm sorry. I just ... I know how much family means to you. Family means everything to me. But they stopped being my family a long time ago. I was just too blind to see it. After hanging up with Riley, I decided to walk home instead of taking the subway. The 40-block trek from Midtown to my Upper West side condo would give me time to think, to process everything that had happened and everything that was about to. As I walked, my phone continued to vibrate. Some messages were from coworkers who had attended the wedding, expressing their shock and support. Others were from friends who had seen the message on social media. A few were from journalists who had somehow found my number, asking for quotes. The most surprising message came from Patricia Winters, the senior partner at my old firm. "We parted on good terms when I left, but we rarely spoke. Vivian, I just heard about this tonight. I want you to know you have my full support. What happened to you was awful, and I admire you for standing up for yourself. Please call if you need anything at all. Reading her message, tears welled up in my eyes for the first time all evening. Not tears of sadness or pain, but tears of gratitude. Here was someone who barely knew my family and had no obligation to help me, yet she offered because it was the right thing to do. It made me realize how wrong my family had been about me. They painted me as a selfish woman who only cared about money and success. But the messages flooding my phone painted a different picture, one of a person who mentored younger associates, did pro bono work for domestic violence victims, and volunteered at legal aid clinics, all while working 80-hour weeks. By the time I reached my building, I had over 200 messages and missed calls. My doorman, Luis, looked at me with alarm. "Miss Vivian, are you okay? You look like you've had a tough night." Luis had worked in my building for 15 years. He had seen me through law school stress, breakups, job changes, and countless late nights. He knew me better than my own family. "I've had better nights, Luis, but I think things are going to get better from here." He smiled. "That's good to hear. You deserve all the happiness in the world." In the elevator, I finally allowed myself to really look at my reflection. My cheek was still red from Sabrina's slap. My hair was a bit messy and my makeup was smudged, but my eyes were bright and focused. I looked like someone who had just been through a battle and emerged victorious. When I entered my apartment, it felt like a sanctuary. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, with lights twinkling like stars. This was my space, my achievement, my home, and no one was ever going to take it away. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my couch, finally allowing myself to sift through the social media posts. Someone had recorded Sabrina slapping me, perhaps thinking it was funny at the time, and uploaded it to Instagram. The video had already been reposted hundreds of times, and the comments ranged from outrage to support. "This is disgusting. Who hit someone at a wedding?" "That lawyer is my hero for not backing down." "The sister is so entitled, it's not even funny." "Assault is assault, family or not." I can't believe everyone was laughing. What is wrong with people? It wasn't just random internet users commenting. I recognized names from New York's legal community, business titans, and even a few minor celebrities who had seen the video. The story was taking on a life of its own, reaching far beyond Sabrina's wedding. My phone rang again. This time it was my assistant, Jenna, calling from her personal phone. "Vivian, I'm so sorry to bother you on a Saturday night, but I've been getting calls all evening. The office voicemail is full, and reporters keep calling my personal line asking for statements." "What kind of reporters?" I asked, suddenly exhausted. "Everyone, local news, Page 6, TMZ, even CNN. This story is everywhere. What are they asking?" "They want to know if you're pressing charges, if you're planning to sue, what your family relationship was like before this. Some are asking about your law practice and your success story. A few want to know about your dating life, of course." Of course. A successful single woman being attacked by her married sister was a classic narrative about female success and family dynamics. "Jenna, I need you to draft a statement. Keep it simple and professional. Something like, Ms. Morrison is grateful for the outpouring of support she's received. She is focusing on her work and her clients at this time and will not be making any further public comments about this private family matter. Should I mention anything about pressing charges?" I paused. I hadn't even considered it. Sabrina's slap was meant to humiliate, not physically harm. But the question made me realize I had options I hadn't thought of. Don't mention charges either way. Let's keep our options open. After hanging up with Jenna, I realized I was starving. I hadn't eaten anything at the wedding, too tense about the impending family confrontation. I ordered Thai food and settled in to fully grasp the fallout. By late that evening, the story was trending. The Instagram video of the slap had been posted by countless gossip accounts, garnering thousands of views within hours. More interesting were the long-form articles already being published about the incident. A feminist blogger wrote about how women are expected to sacrifice their success for family. A family therapist wrote about toxic family dynamics. A legal expert was discussing New York's assault statutes. My story had transcended family drama. It had sparked broader conversations about success, gender, family expectations, and standing up for yourself. Sabrina's Instagram, which had been full of wedding photos and celebratory posts hours before, was now inundated with angry comments. People called her entitled, abusive, and spoiled. Her wedding hashtag Sabrina and Derek Forever, was being ironically used to share the video of her hitting me. I almost felt bad for her, almost. Then I remembered her triumphant expression after she hit me, the way she sneered about finally getting what she deserved, and my pity evaporated. My dinner arrived, and as I ate my pad thai, I started getting calls from unexpected people. My college roommate, whom I hadn't spoken to in years, called to offer her support. A cousin on my father's side, who had always been the family black sheep, called to share her own experiences of being mistreated by her relatives. Even my high school guidance counselor, who had seen the article on Facebook, called to express how proud she was of how far I'd come. But the most meaningful call came from Judge Margaret Chen, who had been at the wedding. "Vivian, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the court directory. I wanted to personally apologize for what I witnessed tonight." "Judge Chen, you don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I should have intervened. I should have said something when I saw what was happening. Instead, I just stood there like everyone else. You were a guest at a wedding, not a referee in a family fight." "Perhaps. But I've been thinking about it all evening, and I keep coming back to this. What I saw wasn't just family drama, Vivian. That was a pattern of abuse. Emotional abuse, financial abuse, and then physical abuse. I've seen it too many times in my courtroom." Her words struck me like a physical blow. I'd been so focused on the slap and the demands for my penthouse that I hadn't considered the bigger picture. But she was right. This was more than one horrible night. It was the culmination of years of my family treating me like an ATM, dismissing my accomplishments, and guilt-tripping me for my success. I never thought of it that way," I said. "Abuse isn't always obvious, especially when it comes from family. We're conditioned to accept behavior from relatives that we'd never tolerate from strangers. But what I saw tonight, the financial demands, the public humiliation, the physical violence, that's a textbook case of family abuse." After I hung up with Judge Chung, I sat in my apartment for a long time, contemplating her words. Had I been abused by my family? It seemed like too strong a word. They had never hit me before tonight. They hadn't tried to control my life. But they had constantly undermined my achievements, made me feel guilty for my success, and demanded I sacrifice my happiness for Sabrina's convenience. They treated me like a resource to be exploited, not a daughter or sister to be cherished. When I finally said no, they publicly shamed and physically assaulted me. Maybe Judge Chen was right. Maybe this was abuse, just in a form I hadn't recognized. The realization was both empowering and heartbreaking. Empowering because it validated my decision to cut ties. Heartbreaking because it meant admitting that my family had never truly loved me. They just loved what I could give them. As the night wore on, I found myself feeling grateful for Sabrina's slap. It had been the wake-up call I needed, the final straw that gave me the strength to stop enabling their behavior. Without it, I might have continued to be their doormat for years. By 2 a.m., I was exhausted but surprisingly calm. I had silenced my phone alerts to stop the constant buzzing and was getting ready for bed when I heard the building's intercom. I checked the monitor and saw Sabrina standing outside, still in her wedding dress, her mascara smeared. She looked up at the camera and mouthed, "Please." I wavered for a second. She looked shattered and desperate. Despite everything, the sister I grew up with was standing outside my building, pleading for help in her ruined wedding dress. Then I remembered her triumphant expression after she hit me. I remembered her saying she deserved everything I'd worked for. I remembered the 200 people laughing as I stood there, humiliated and alone. I turned off the monitor and went to bed. The next morning, the story was on page 6. "Liar assaulted by sister at Rit's wedding," read the headline, complete with a screenshot of the video of Sabrina slapping me. The article detailed the entire affair, from my family's demands for my penthouse to the public assault. By lunchtime, it was trending on social media. The hashtags #weddingassault and #toxicfamily went viral, with thousands sharing their own stories of entitled relatives and supporting my decision to fight back. That afternoon, Sabrina's new mother-in-law called to cancel her invitation to the family Christmas party. Derek's law firm started an internal investigation after clients expressed concern about his involvement. Mom and Dad's country club membership was quietly put under review. The revenge I had chosen wasn't violent or criminal. It was simply the truth, amplified by the power of social media and the professional network I had spent years building. Sometimes the most devastating weapon is simply showing the world who someone really is. Sabrina called me a week later, crying and begging me to help them manage the damage. She had been fired from her job at a boutique PR agency when clients started canceling their contracts. Derek was facing a professional ethics review, and their honeymoon was cut short when photographers started following them. "Vivian, please," she sobbed into the phone. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "You meant to humiliate me," I answered gently. "You meant to force me to give up my home. You meant to put me in my place in front of 200 people. The only thing you didn't mean was to face consequences for it. I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone I was wrong." Sabrina, stop. I was sitting in my penthouse, looking at the view of Central Park that I had fought so hard for. You can't apologize your way out of this. You can't take back what you did, and you can't force me to forgive you just because you're finally facing consequences. "But we're family," she muttered. "Family doesn't assault each other, Sabrina. Family doesn't demand sacrifices they aren't willing to make themselves. Family doesn't laugh when one of their own is humiliated. I know I messed up, but please help me fix this. I can't fix this for you. This is something you have to live with." She hung up, still crying, and I never heard from her again. 6 months later, Sabrina and Derek were divorced. The stress of the incident, coupled with the financial strain of both losing their jobs, had ended their marriage before it had even begun. Sabrina moved back in with our parents, who were experiencing their own social exile. Dad's business was struggling as clients distanced themselves from the family that had become synonymous with entitlement and selfishness. Meanwhile, my practice flourished. The media attention, while initially jarring, ended up working in my favor. I became known as the lawyer who refused to be intimidated and who stood up for herself, even when it meant standing alone. New clients sought me out specifically because they'd heard about my refusal to back down. I never got my family back, but then I realized I never truly had them to begin with. I had a group of people who saw me as a resource to be used, not a person to be cherished. Of course, I kept the penthouse. I eventually turned one of the spare bedrooms into a home office and the other into a guest room for my closest friends. The space Sabrina claimed I didn't need was filled by the relationships I cultivated with people who respected me for who I was, not what I could provide them. Sometimes I wonder if I could have handled things differently, if there was a way to keep my boundaries without destroying my family's lives. But then I remember the sound of that slap ringing through the ballroom, the laughter of 200 people, and Sabrina's triumphant smirk when she thought she had won. I chose the revenge that would permanently silence them, and it worked. They never asked me for anything again. Unexpectedly, the silence was exactly what I'd always wanted. In the end, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting back at someone. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let them get away with it. Sometimes it's standing up and saying, "No, you don't get to treat me like this anymore." And sometimes that's enough to change everything.